Got something to say? Get in on the conversation at 415-915-2291. That's 415-915-CALL-1.
Welcome to Conspiracies Against Wellness with your host, Jonelle Elgaway.
Good evening, Call Nation. Tonight, a very special show. Jonelle Elgaway live in Washington, D.C.
Good evening, Call Nation. Welcome to Conspiracies Against Wellness. I'm your host, Jonelle Elgaway. If you have a question or comment, please call in at 415-915-2291. Or you can live chat with me and listen in on our YouTube channel, Conspiracies Against Wellness live stream. Tomorrow, guest Andrea Anderson will be here to discuss in detail the opioid issues within the U.S. Tonight, I'm here with guest Lauren Deluca. We were in Washington, D.C. today with Dr. Thomas Klein, Kemi Hale, Nikki Hale, one of the Hale friends, and Stacy Fields. Lauren Deluca, welcome to Conspiracies Against Wellness. How are you this evening?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
We are happy to have you. So can you please explain to our audience what health issues you have?
Well, I actually started feeling sick a couple years ago. Took them quite some time to figure out what was wrong, but in May of this year, they finally diagnosed me with chronic pancreatitis. I never even heard of it until I actually was told that I had it. And what it is a disorder with your pancreas where the enzymes that are normally to digest your food stay inside your pancreas and digest your organ instead.
Is it painful?
Yes. I guess before this happened to me, it was a pain that I did not realize the human body could endure and live through, to be honest with you. I've only had a few major attacks, and each time I've thought I was going to die because the pain was so severe. And in my body, I would lose complete control. I'd start vomiting. I couldn't even drink water. I'd start sweating, lose control of my bowels completely. It's very vicious and very progressive.
Is there a cure for that, or once you have it forever?
Unfortunately, there is no cure right now. They have some options, but they're all really invasive surgery-type options, and even then, it's a hit or a miss if they even work. And they generally will make you won't be as, might be able to alleviate some of the pain, but overall your sickness will decline greatly and you become a diabetic. And so it's really a last resort.
What kind of what kind of treatments are there for something like this? Well, let's start with like physical treatments that you would go.
There's actually a lot I had to change when I got this diagnosis. I always thought I ate pretty healthy, but apparently I didn't eat as low fat as I thought because I had to go under 30 grams of fat a day, and which is a lot harder than you would think because I can't even eat an avocado because it's too high fat. So the diet has to be really restrictive. I have to take digestive enzymes, medications. Every time I have a sip of any coffee or any type of food goes into my body, I have to take medication that releases digestive enzymes into my body, so my pancreas does not turn on and start eating itself. Even with those, it can still do it at its own. It kind of has a mind of its own, and it can do it even though I take those medications.
Okay, I'm going to want to go into the medication thing more today. So we're here in Washington, D.C., and I want to know, let's let everybody know, why were we in Washington, D.C. today?
Okay, well, we went to Washington, D.C. today to meet with a couple of senators as well as Congressman McGovern, Congressman James McGovern from Massachusetts. We had a long meeting with him as well. And we came down here to bring the matter of the other side of the opioid crisis to light and to sit down with legislators and have some real talk about what's going on in the chronic pain community as a result of the restrictions that they're putting on opioid medication, in particular the regulations overseeing doctors.
Okay. So Congressman McGovern, who else did we go or see?
Oh, okay. We also went to see Senator Sanders, Bernie Sanders' staff. We met with, I believe, a couple of his staffers in the Health Committee. Excuse me, sorry, I lost my train of thought. In the Health Committee, which is a subcommittee of the federal health policy. Mm-hmm. And they were actually very sympathetic to our side of the story, which was wonderful. And we also met with Senator Ed Markey's health policy representative.
All right, so our legislators and people that make laws and stuff like that for this, are they normally not helpful, or what?
Well, what I found, how we ended up really in D.C. is when I got sick, I couldn't get help anywhere, and I called all to the legislators and things like that, and we eventually I ended up forming Chronic Illness Advocacy and Awareness Group as a result of kind of spinning my wheels trying to get help. And then as we grew as a group, I seemed to be able to get a little bit more, I think they took us a little bit more seriously rather than a constituent that's just calling for help on their in particular issue. I grew to decide to bring on more people and bring this to a much higher level than just helping myself.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you about your groups and stuff like that in a little bit. So how did you get these meetings? I mean, is this something that anybody could do?
I actually think anybody could. It takes a lot of persistence. I mean, honestly, I even looked back to myself and said, how did I pull this off? I mean,
well, how did you?
So I basically just called and persisted. I called every state legislator, the state and the United States legislator, congressmen, senators. I called the Health and Human Services for my state as well as federal.
What state are you?
I'm in Massachusetts. And I also called the attorney generals. I've called the medical boards. So, and I mean, I made these calls not once, not twice. I mean, 10 to 20 phone calls a day for the past 6-7 months. And
who do you reach when you call in? Like, how does it go?
Every time I call into any sort of legislative office, it's usually, the staff is pretty receptive for the most part to hearing your story and hearing your plight. But the unfortunate thing for a lot of us who are advocating is these get lost. These kind of just get lost. We have a lot of issues going on in this country, and this is a major issue as well. But on the grand scheme of things, it might not fall on their radar. And these calls, I think that we make, might not make it past the person making the call, taking the message a lot of times. So it's good to ask to speak for who is in charge of the healthcare policy for that legislator, because that's the individual you really want to speak to, and that's the individual who will potentially get a meeting for you so you can go down and sit with your representatives. And it's the United States representatives, like the congressmen and the senators, are much more difficult to get. But on a state level, your state reps have to meet with you in their offices. It's their duty.
How quickly, okay, so you called in and you said you'd like to have a meeting. How quickly does that usually happen, or how quickly did it happen for you?
Once I kind of got I did a lot of trial and error and kind of found my groove in this advocacy work. I apologize.
It's okay.
You're
talking about advocacy work, and I asked you, what did you? How long does it take to get a meeting usually?
I actually got these meetings relatively quickly, but that's also, I think, as a result of how fast we've grown as a community and how fast people have started to step up, and I think it's starting to hit their radar. So once I finally got past the gatekeeper on the phone and I got to the right people with the healthcare policy, it took me about, I would say, a solid 3 to 4 weeks of back and forth with emails and discussions, and it's almost like I'd say it's almost like a courtship, where you just have to they have to kind of get to know you a little bit and see that you're a credible person and that you're really working towards a greater goal than just to meet and talk about yourself and what you want them to do for you. And if you really explain to them that you're here on a much larger issue, it's not just because you're having a problem, it's because this is a major issue that's affecting millions of American citizens. And that's something that, unfortunately, in making a lot of these calls, I found our legislators, especially our state legislators, are not even aware of what's happening to the chronic pain patients. And it's not even really to their fault, because even myself, being, an advocate and now in GC, up until I got really sick, I had no idea this was happening. And I think that's a lot of the problem is it's just there's lack of coverage in the media. And even our state legislators, they only see that one side.
Yeah, well, especially like on mainstream media news and stuff like that, all you really ever see is about, the opioid epidemic or, how horrible things are, or overdoses. So, yes, I agree with you. I mean, it's so important that we start sharing our side as well. So I want to get into the meeting. So who did you meet with first?
Our first meeting was with Senator Bernie Sanders' staff. We met with Michaela and
I think Catherine or something.
I apologize. I don't have the name in front of me, but we met with two of the healthcare policy health committees, and we also had Tammy Hale and Nikki Hale call in, and Stacy Fields was also in to be a conference on
and
the
Dr.
call.
Klein, and then the Hale's friend Jay.
Yeah.
So when you got in there, did they ask you questions? What happened from there?
Well, first and foremost, it's always best to thank them for your time, because their time is very valuable. So we want to, let them know that we appreciate that. And mostly, we did a lot of the talking, mostly just kind of introducing ourselves, what we each do individually, as well as what we were doing collaboratively as in the advocacy work and towards our goals. And there was a fair amount of questions. They seemed, I was very pleased, actually, with how well the staff received our stories, and they were very interested in the facts, the real facts about the statistics being used to track the opioid deaths, the lack of tracking on untreated pain suicides, and just also Bernie is really big on. He's a great proponent for healthcare and taking care of individuals like us that need help, and we are not getting it for really legal loopholes is what the reason we're not getting it. So I felt really good about how that went.
We have a call we're going to take. Caller from area code 802. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi, Jonelle. This is Nikki and Tammy. Hi, Jonelle.
Oh, Nikki and Tammy.
Hi,
how are you guys?
We're well. How are you guys?
We're good. Very good. What would you like to discuss? Did you want to talk about what you shared today, and also actually, what were your thoughts on how it went and that you got to say back?
Sure. Well, we thought that the interview went very well. We were very, very happy with how well prepared all of the information was. So I think one recommendation I make to all others is to make sure that you're prepared. We had wonderful support with people providing us with statistics, with facts, with numbers, but we also had people who shared personal stories. I think it was a very well-rounded effort at presenting the issue from not only an emotional point, but from a quantitative point as well. I think one thing that we've learned and something that we can share with others is to be cognizant of our time restrictions and to make sure that we have the ability to impart all of our information within those time restrictions. I think that is something that we will all have to potentially think about for the future, including myself. But my mother's here too. Mom, is there anything that you wanted to share or that you learned from today's speech? And by the way, everybody, we spoke with staff for Bernie Sanders in Vermont because we are in Vermont. So, Mom, my mom is Tammy.
Hello. We had a wonderful. Hi there, guys. You did a good job today. Yes, wonderful job. You did a nice job, and so did Dr. Klein. It was a great opportunity to speak to Bernie. We're Vermont constituents, so that's who we spoke to. And I would urge everyone to reach out to your senators and ask for an audience. They were very accommodating once Lauren opened the door for us. They want to hear what we have to say. They want to hear from their constituents, and just prepare. Get your speech down pat before you get on that phone or if you go in person. Have your facts and figures and practice and practice. And Nikki pretty much summed the rest of it all up very eloquently, I may say.
Well, you guys were great, and I just want to say thank you so much for calling in and being there. There were so many people that were involved in this. Between Stacy and I putting in the information, and Lauren and her groups, and you guys and everybody that shared their stories. I know Lauren got a ton of stories, right?
Yes, I started out actually just started collecting letters with the idea to get these meetings, and almost as soon as I got these letters in, the meetings came together. So we were able to, in very short time, collect several hundred letters and get them into a packet to try to show what's going on and get them to see what's happening on the street.
Yeah. Well, I just thank you, everybody that was collectively involved in this. We couldn't have done it without each of you, and Nikki and Tammy, and I know your friend Jay was there too. Thank you guys for coming on. I wanted to know what you guys thought about how they responded, or were they open, did you think?
I felt they were open. I felt that they were definitely amenable to listening. They didn't give a lot of feedback as to how they would take that information and disseminate it. But I don't also think that they were in a position to tell us how they were going to disseminate it. But I am very hopeful to learn how they present it to other members of Congress and the legislature and the executive branch. So I think it went well. I think we will see how it goes in the future. But I think it's important for everybody to remember that no pyramid is built with one stone. You have to lay several bricks and several stones in order to get the full effect or the full pyramid. So I think we need to keep knocking on doors. We need to keep calling our senators and representatives. And I think that collectively as a group, if we all make several calls and lay several stones, only then can we come full circle and have an entire building.
Yeah. Actually, something else Dr. Klein mentioned during one of the meetings is he has, and this will help, our community. He has a certificate. It's a palliative care certificate that, he's going to want to be able to put out there, and it's for like the hospitals, doctors, pharmacies, health insurance companies. So when they see that and that mark, they know, okay, this is somebody with intractable pain, and they need help, and they are open to getting whatever medication or however their doctor wants to treat them. It's allowed, because right now we are being stopped, and that's not okay. And if we don't do something, we are either going to die, people are going to be committing suicide, or, the heroin issues are going to just keep going up and up. Lauren, did you want to add something?
I actually did just want to add on a personal note and what you were saying is that we can't do this without everybody. And I wanted to also extend thanks to everybody who sent in their letters and things like that, because I think a lot of times sometimes we see other people doing it, and then we, as just natural habit, think that it's all set because somebody else is doing it. And with such a large issue like this, we really need to come together. And I think that our unity is what is actually really what was the thing that made these meetings go so well and get so well organized, and having all these people that are starting to participate and starting to make those phone calls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I have never seen so a lot of us are sick and we don't feel well and we're not able to get out, or, we're afraid to speak up because we don't want our treatments to be taken away because of the fear that's going around within all of these communities when it concerns pain. And, I've never seen so many people finally come together and really speak out. And I'm just so proud to be a part of this. And I'm so thankful for each and every one of you, because if we don't do this, no one's going to do it. And, during one of the meetings, was it McGovern?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he was talking about, this is the doctors need to speak up, and the doctors should speak up. And Dr. Klein said, yes, they should, but they're not. And the reason why they're not is because, the DEA is taking a hard look at them. They could lose their license now, which some have already. So instead of being threatened or have that possibility, they're just cutting people off, or they're not prescribing to anybody. And this will continue if we don't do something about it. That other side, they are motivated, and they will not stop until they get, right now currently the CDC guidelines are being treated as if they are law. And that's not how it is. The CDC guidelines were really for primary care doctors to treat, the everyday person, not intractable pain patients, not to treat chronic pain patients. That it's not going to be a forever thing, or it's not the worst of the worst, basically. So I just wanted to thank you guys for standing up and doing this, and I look forward to continuing to make more meetings and to make more opportunities for this. I know I don't want to stop until this gets changed or fixed, or we get looked at and heard.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. And I think another message that we heard today that was really important is in highlighting what Jonelle was just saying about the doctors need to do something. And what we have in a situation right now, and I can speak in Massachusetts, they have implemented some new laws, and the laws are written in certain ways to try to protect us, but even though it's written in such a manner, because of the doctor fear factor that's involved, it's going to effectively make them illegal. So that's something that I think that we need to really start making our congressmen and our state reps aware of, that there is a striking fear through the community, and it's not even just doctors. I reached out to the National Pancreatitis Foundation, and I've been speaking with them a little bit to see if they will take a public stance for our patients given the severity of our disease. And they did make some accommodations with their website and adding a section about addiction, when initially I was not too pleased with it, but once I took a look at it, they did try to make an effort to make a small step in the right direction to at least address a difference between addiction and dependency, and that these are two very different issues. So I think bringing that to the legislators and to start getting them to think about outside of the box and outside of what has been just drilled into the head from the media, just flooding the other side.
Agreed.
Terry and Nikki, did you guys have any other thoughts or comments?
I think one thought that I had was I heard a lovely piece of advice, and I don't remember who I heard it from, but I heard a lovely piece of advice about if and when you have an opportunity to speak with a senator or a representative. I think for our listeners who are listening tonight, if you or your family members do have an opportunity such as Lauren and Jonelle had today, one of the pieces of advice that was given was that refraining from saying that we have to completely stop or reverse some piece of legislation that's already gone through. Instead, focusing on revisional steps for the future. And I think that tactic worked well today. I think there was a lot of reception towards that. So if others have the opportunity to speak, I would give that advice towards revision of laws instead of complete retraction.
Yeah, when I spoke to other advocates that have been doing this for a long time, that was one of their suggestions. They just said, either, completely scrap the CDC guidelines or add this to it. And I agree with you because, it took a long time for them to put this together, and it just seems like a lot bigger of an issue and more overwhelming, I think. So I think that's good advice. And I don't remember who said that either, but
yeah. It was great advice. It was really great advice, and we're going to sign off in a second, but I just wanted to thank everybody who helped make today possible. We will have more days like this in the future, and if we all come together, we can create more of these days that are successful and create more ears that listen. And thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate you guys being there.
Thank
Anytime.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
All right. Have a good night. So we're getting a lot of comments on Facebook, and I'm sorry, YouTube. And I just wanted to thank everybody for commenting on here. It's so important as we go that, we do support each other. One thing I've noticed is we don't always have to agree on everything else, or we might be involved with other things, and that's perfectly fine. But something like this, it's just pretty amazing when we can all put our differences or, our other things that are going on at that time and be able to focus on this one thing. I am really thankful for that. I wanted to ask you, Lauren, can you talk a little bit about how you got into the advocacy work? I know you have a Facebook group and a nonprofit.
Well, a part of that was it kind of rolled into the CDC guidelines and the lack of my treatment. And when I first started making calls, I didn't understand why I was getting treated the way I was. I took it personal, like everybody was, just denying me treatment and picking on me, and I didn't know why. And then I ended up kind of seeing the whole picture. And once I realized, I started a petition that was just for my disease. But once I found out about the CDC guidelines and that was the real culprit behind this, I couldn't in good conscience push to change law just to protect my disease. Because even if I accomplished that, I wouldn't feel good about it. Because now that I've connected with so many people and seeing the suffering that is going on outrageous levels, I wanted to open it up and make sure that everybody who is in the situation that I am in gets the help that they need, and not just me.
Right. Well, because, this is many, many different communities that involve pain. So, yeah, I agree. We won't want to leave anybody else. We have another caller. Caller from area code 980. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi, I am from... Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, sorry. My name is Jessica. I'm actually from Charlotte. Some of you know me as Callisto80 on Twitter. I'm now Cureless Tourist. But I actually just wanted to kind of chime in and say, and this is the first time I've called, so I have a little bit of a problem, but Periscope, videos. I was doing those for EDS, following another person on Twitter, just kind of telling my story. And the reason why I'm saying it is my mayor actually ended up wanting to speak with me. Now, I did tag the mayor. I also tagged our governor, Governor Cooper, and Senator Tom Tillis. But because of the Periscope video, I was talking about EDS and how we feel and what's going on, all the issues that we've kind of faced lately, especially, Dr. Tennant, unfortunately, him being raided, and just the stigma that surrounds what we're going through. My mayor actually is reaching out to me, wanted to see my video through a different link, but she is now continuing to want to work with me because I made a comment that no one in Charlotte knows about it, and also made a comment about the NC Stop program, that there's no chronic pain patients that we know of or any intractable patients. I'm a palliative care patient myself, but they don't get that input. So just an idea for those, that's just another way. I've written my letters. I can't always get to where they are. I'm a mother too, and it's painful. But that's just another idea where I actually got some attention, and now I have the opportunity to work with the city of Charlotte, doing whatever we can.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in and sharing that, because you're right. Actually, International Pain Foundation says we know many patients are not able to get to D.C. or their state capital. Calls work too, but something like you just mentioned works as well. Absolutely, yeah. Just because you can't get out or be there, there are other options. And I know there's some support groups or advocacy groups that are starting to create other things of how you can do it. And they're going to actually, go into detail of ways you can and give examples and stuff like that.
Well, thank you. I think that's awesome, and that's something I'm going to do myself. But, if we're not scared, it's time that they see our face. And, that's all I want to say is just like I wanted them to see my face. I know I just made a comment, and it's not that I'm full of myself, but I want them to see me. I'm a mother, I'm a mom, and this is what I go through, and I love my family, and this illness just doesn't affect us. It affects our families, and I wanted them to realize that we're real people. We're not just words on paper. So, but that's it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, Call Nation, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back shortly.
Coming soon, Caw 360 Network. At the same place you get the Caw Show now, you'll be able to get great new shows like Save Our Children, Enhancing Your World, Wake Sheep, and of course, the Caw Show, with more to come. Caw 360 Network will educate, enlighten, and inform you. And you won't have to hunt all over the internet because it will be all right there on the new Caw 360 Network. Think of it as your one-stop for your daily dose of truth. So stay tuned. Great things are happening, and Caw 360 Network will be leading the way.
Okay, and now it's back to Jonelle.
Hello, Caw Nation, and thank you, and welcome back. Again, if you want to call in with a question or comment, please call in at 415-915-2291. So thank you so much for that great information, caller. Something else I wanted to let everybody know about, because before we went today to the meetings, for the last few weeks, people have been contacting me, and we are deciding that we are going to have a rally. We were going to try to throw it together today, but there was no way possible that we can get, all of the paperwork and everything that would be needed for that. That's a big, big fee, and I would never want to just throw something together. So we're looking at April. I will be working with everyone that's contacted me, and anybody that wants to join in, please do so. There is a place for everybody. We need help. We need each one of you if we're going to want to do this. So, and also I was going to be doing a live show too. So if you can't join us, we'll be able to be live, and we are working on video as well as audio for after the new year. So I'll be happy to do that then in April. So Lauren, so we were talking about your advocacy group a little bit, and that's how your nonprofit was born too?
Yes. And during the process, when I decided to open up my, my fight for, basically our human rights, when I opened that up to all illnesses, I started just really a Facebook group and just started reaching out and trying to direct people to get attention on this specific issue. And as that started to grow and we started to connect over the internet with multiple leaders of various support groups and advocacy groups and growing into this unified coalition of groups that are working under the chronic illness, working independently but also together under the Chronic Illness Advocacy and Awareness Group, which is the name of the foundation, the nonprofit, that I ended up forming. And really the name, it was an unintentional business. It was just to try to wait. Once I saw how bad this issue was, I wanted to get a nonprofit together so we could start putting some real money into this and trying to get some advertising, really put our whole effort into what is going on and raising awareness to not only this particular aspect, but our overall health care for people with these illnesses that are the lesser known illnesses, because it's not just the opioid that lacks, it's kind of the overall health care that lacks, because so many people are fearful because that's a piece of the puzzle that we need.
Right. Well, thank you so much for doing that. I understand what you're saying, because I did the same thing with this show. I wanted a way that I could reach a lot of people and help as many people as possible. And I think anybody that's listening out there, just because we are disabled or we have, diseases or whatever, there are definitely ways you can help out. And you just have to figure out what you're passionate about and what you love. We have another caller from area code 609. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi, Jonelle. This is Meredith Lawrence. How are you doing tonight, honey?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to say thank you for today. It is the start. It is the beginning. And, for a lot of us, going into these senators and these legislators' offices is stepping completely out of your comfort zone. And I have a meeting tomorrow, and that's what I keep coming back to is, a year ago, I would have never dreamed I'd be here and doing this. But it's necessary, because if we don't stand up, more people are going to die like my husband. And I can't live with that, and I'm not okay with that. And so if that involves I have to step out of my comfort zone and my level of what I'm okay with, well, then that's what I have to do. And, I just appreciate all the support around this and all the people that have stood by me with this. Because up until September, I really thought I was all by myself, and I wasn't sure that anybody else was going through this. I didn't know a year ago what the CDC guidelines even were. And, I got the education the hard way, and I don't want somebody else to have that. I don't want somebody else to have the same experience that I've had and that Tammy and Nikki Hale have had. I don't want anybody else to go through that. And if I have to step out of my comfort zone and walk into a congressman's office and say, look, this is the problem and this is what we need to do, and what will you do to help me, then that's what I'm going to do. And, I just wanted to thank you for pulling a lot of this together for all of us.
Well, you're welcome. First, I'm so sorry for your loss. Would you, by chance, be willing to share a little bit about what happened? I know that you did have a soundbite on our vigil in October, but she'd like to share it. Thank you.
Yeah. My husband was a chronic pain patient. For 10 years, he did pain management. He went through a pain management doctor, did everything that they told him to do, even the things that he hated doing. Went through every trial, every procedure, everything he could do, and was on opiates, was on opiate pain medication, and was stable, had some quality of life. He was stable. And February 3rd, when he went into the doctor's office for a very routine, normal, twice a month visit where they gave him his prescriptions, they told him they were going to reduce his medications by 30% immediately. And the goal was to take him down by 80% within 3 months. And for him, he said it was like, waiting for that impact for a car crash. He knew it was going to be bad.
Now, was this going on with anybody else in the pain management doctor's office? Was that doctor doing this to everybody else or no?
No, the doctor said that based on the CDC guidelines, Tennessee had come up with their own set of guidelines that were, again, voluntary guidelines. The doctor's office was concerned that eventually they would become law, and so they were going to proactively go in, and they did this to all of their pain patients. They, as a group across the board, cut everybody's medications down to fit into those guidelines and fit into those categories. So it impacted everybody. It impacted everybody in their practice that they were working with. And it wasn't, it wasn't just one person, and that's kind of harder because they didn't look at what impact that would have. They didn't look at how that would destabilize him. They didn't look at what they were doing to quality of life for people. Jay went through the initial titration, the initial decrease in medication, and through the month of February, it just got worse, and he could see it coming. And, we talked a lot. He and I were very open about quality of life versus quantity of life. And, they can keep you alive in a hospital on machines forever almost, but is that really living? And on March 2nd would have been his next doctor's appointment, and he knew they were going to cut his medication again. And he was afraid of it. He knew that it was going to just become harder. And even with the initial decrease, there were days when he couldn't get out of his recliner or his chair on his own. He had to have help. And it really just destabilized him altogether and discouraged him. He felt like the doctors had given up on him. And he knew his next appointment was going to be on March 2nd. And the night before he came to me, and he woke me up, and he said to me very clearly, it's time. And, married people have that shorthand. We always can fill in the gaps, and I knew what he was saying to me, but I made him say it. And I said to him, okay, what are you talking about? And he said, I've got 3 options. I go in there tomorrow, and they cut my meds again, and I live with this constant pain, or I go find some street drugs, and God knows what I'm going to get or what it's going to do to me, or I can take my life. And I'm choosing to opt out. I'm choosing option 3. And the tone of his voice, the way he said it, I knew his mind was made up. And as his wife, I felt like I had 2 choices. I could come home from work one night, I could come home from running errands one day and find him, or I could stand by him. And I chose to stand by him. And we went to the park where we had renewed our vows in 2015. Beautiful, beautiful little place. And still is. And he was sitting on the park bench, and he looked at me, and he said, you make sure they know that they did this to me, and you make sure that your voice is heard and our story is heard. And he said the same thing he said to me for 12 years, almost every day. He said, you're strong, and you're beautiful, and you're intelligent, and you're going to be fine. And he put the gun to his chest and pulled the trigger. And I lost my best friend, and my whole world turned upside down. But I'm not going to let it be for nothing. This has to stop.
I'm so sorry. And I'm so sorry that much pain. I can't imagine what you're going through, but, you aren't alone. And you are doing an amazing job at speaking up and making sure that his memory is alive and making sure that you're keeping his promise. Thank you so much for...
in the initial fog of being in grief, I thought I was alone, and then I started reaching out, and I started telling my story, and I realized that there are so many other people suffering this way. And it's scary because, somebody like me who, I'm relatively healthy, but any minute something can happen, and I don't want the government making decisions on my health care for me. I want my doctors doing it. I want to know that if I need something, it's an option.
Yes, absolutely.
As hard as this has been, it's necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have a choice anymore, because if we don't do something, it's going to happen to everybody. There's 25 million intractable pain patients right now that are prescribed opioids, and slowly by slowly, they're just going away. You know, and just like what happened with your husband. How since this has happened, I mean, have you gotten a lot of, you know, have a lot of people reached out to you? Has it been positive stuff? Has anybody said, you know, how could you do this, and how could you help him? What's happened?
The feedback has been really pretty positive for the most part, especially once I found the chronic pain community and that specific community. I have had some negative pushback. I have had a very close family member tell me that he feels like I pretty much murdered my husband and I should have never been there and I should have stopped him. But you know what? That's his opinion. I feel like I, as his wife, did what I needed to do and loved him until the end. And I'm the one that has to live with that decision. I know how much pain he was in. I know how much he was hurting. And my immediate reaction after he had pulled the trigger, my immediate first thought was relief, because I knew he was out of pain for the first time in a long time.
Did you get in trouble for helping him or being there?
Yeah, I most certainly did. I spent the entire day that I lost my husband in a police station, in a jail cell. Detectives that, you know, they were very supportive and very understanding, but it criminally, legally, technically, it was considered assisted suicide. The detective that booked me said in 30 years he had never charged somebody with it, but they felt like they had to do something. And I went to court actually the day before I flew back to New Jersey for Jay's funeral. I went to court for an initial hearing, and they reduced the charge to reckless endangerment. And I'm on probation for a year. They felt like they had to do something, and I understood that as much as I could. But if I had to make the choice again, I felt like I had a choice. I could come home and I could find him, and he could end his life alone, or I could be there the same way I've been there all the way through. He never went to a doctor's appointment alone. He never made a decision about his health care alone. We did everything together, and this was just a piece of that for us. So yeah, there were some ramifications, and we talked about that. I knew that was a possibility, and it didn't scare me.
Well, you are so brave, and I just appreciate you coming on and sharing this with us. I just can't even imagine this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I want to, you know, you're the one actually that suggested the April rally, and I'm so excited to work with you on that. And you know, by putting, you know, a lot of people, I think they would have been destroyed, but you're putting so much into this. Honestly, I'm just so in awe of you, and I feel honored.
If I sit still and I'm not busy, I think too much, and I miss him too much. If I'm busy and I'm doing things like this and working with you on putting together this pain rally, on getting into our legislators, then I'm putting a positive spin on it, and that's just how I live my life. And everybody I've heard before that people think I'm brave. I'm not brave. I was scared to death of coming home and finding him. And this was my way of preventing that and my way of helping him. But I appreciate the thought. I really, really do. But there has to be a face behind the numbers.
Stacey Fields on YouTube asked, I wonder if they could have sued the CDC for wrongful death. Do you know if you can?
I don't know if I could sue the CDC. I know that I've talked to a number of lawyers in Tennessee, and the way that Tennessee's legislation is written, there's not a lawyer that will go after a doctor. It's expensive. It's prohibitively expensive. And at this point, you know, a lawsuit would be good if it would do some good for somebody else, but it's not going to fix anything. What's going to fix anything is changing these guidelines.
International Pain Foundation says you have permission from the government to sue the government, so I don't know if you do that.
Okay.
Well, again, thank you so much for calling in. You're just so incredibly brave, and I'm thankful to know you, and I think you're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, and we will talk really soon. You have a really good night, hon.
Okay, you too.
All right.
We have another call. Caller from area code 480. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi, Jonelle. This is Barbie Engel, and I live in Arizona, and I am the president of the International Pain Foundation.
Hello. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thank you so much for going to D.C., the whole group of you that went and making a difference today. I really appreciate it, and I hope more people follow suit. And you don't have to have a coordinated effort like you guys did, but it does definitely help. And I know I've done it myself many times. I know how much energy it takes to do what you guys did today, and I believe you're going back again tomorrow. Is that right? Yeah. So.
No. Dr. Klein was supposed to get a few meetings, but they fell through. So it will be hopefully soon again. I just want to keep going, just like you.
Right.
Keep doing. So.
Yep. And I think I commented earlier. You can call in and posted a number in your chat that people can use and the directions on how to do it. But if they can see your face and have your face in their mind when legislation comes up and they're making their negotiations, it is very helpful for if you're able to get there to do that. So, but I actually had a meeting today with the Arizona Health Department, and they're doing a opioid task force type thing here in Arizona. And I did learn a couple things, and one was that the CDC is putting out a whole new marketing campaign starting at the beginning of next year and around the opioid guidelines. And International Pain Foundation has gone on record with the PR company that was hired by the CDC saying, what the problems were with the guidelines, as well as 5 other organizations that they interviewed, leaders of organizations that they interviewed. But I actually saw the videos today that are coming, and it was a little bit shocking. But I do want people that, your listeners, to know that is coming, and we need, now more than ever, need to have our faces and our voices heard and our faces known by our legislators, so that we can get some of these guidelines overturned, redone with better statistics that are more appropriate to the 100 million Americans with chronic pain, as well as still address the 2.5 million that live with addiction issues.
Right. Absolutely. Let me ask you, so when you have been in D.C. or when you go in these meetings, what exactly do you say to them, and how have they responded to you?
Each time I go, I concentrate on a couple of issues, because the problem is so vast that I could be there with multiple issues, and that's why I end up going multiple times, or end up calling and talking to their staff on the phone when I'm not able to go in person and a imminent issue comes up. But I just go in and tell them my name and about my chronic pain journey, and I do that in a very short amount of time, and then I talk to them about the issue that I'm there for. And again, I usually go in with a one-sheeter and maybe a page of links to additional information that they can follow up with. And I found that you don't need to go in with too much stuff, because it overwhelms them. And typically 90% of the stuff will either go into the trash can or not be passed on, and I want it to be passed on, so I try not to give too much information in one sitting, and that is why I go so often, so that I can address a different issue and challenge each time. Now they kind of know my face, and they know who I am, especially in the state of Arizona, in Virginia and California. Those are the ones that I've advocated for the most. In person in those states, but I've called and written letters to probably almost all 50 states over the last 11 years. And it has helped make a difference. I have been in hearings where it was just pre-decided what they were going to do, and then they heard my testimony. They saw me come into their office on a one-on-one meeting like you guys did today, and then I'm sitting there in their hearing, and sometimes I've gotten up to speak, and other patients have gotten up to speak, and it either postpones the decision or reverses or changes the decision. So I have seen it work firsthand when their constituents come in and they see your face and they know you're sitting in there for this hearing, and they've met with you, or their staff member has met with you personally, and their staff member recognizes you in the audience and is like, hey, Barbie's here, Jonelle's here, Meredith is here. When they can see you and put a face to a problem or challenge, they're more eager to want to do something about it and help. And if the other side's not there or isn't able to make a compelling argument, it fares better usually for us as patients. So it's important what you did today, and I really appreciate it.
Right. Well, thank you. We have a question on YouTube Live. Shelley Beans asked, I'd like to get in contact with Barbie. Does anyone know where I could find International Pain Foundation information, contact information?
Sure. Internationalpain.org is the website information. If you want to contact me directly, you can email me, Barbie@internationalpain.org. And we have a quick connect form on internationalpain.org where you can, at the bottom of every page, fill out that quick connect form, and it'll get rerouted to me. So those are the easiest ways to do it. Or give me a call, 480-882-1342.
What was that again? 480, sorry.
480-882-1342.
Okay, great. I put it up on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing everything you did. You were on Coast to Coast the other night. Would you want to talk a little bit about what you were doing on there?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was on Coast to Coast 2 nights ago, and my phone literally started ringing within 5 minutes of going off the air, and has been ringing nonstop, night and day, since doing that. It was just amazing, the number of people that are contacting us for assistance, for help, for guidance. I basically talked a little bit about my story for the first part of my segment. I was on for half an hour. And then the second half of my segment was about advocating and doing things as a chronic pain patient, and through the International Pain Foundation and the other organizations that I work with, like CPATF, to make a difference in the lives of chronic pain patients through legislation.
That's so awesome. And, you know, I know you've been doing this for a very long time, and thank you so much. And, you know, I come to you for advice a lot, so I just really appreciate everything that you're doing.
You're welcome, and welcome to the party. I mean,
yeah.
it's sometimes a strange party, but it can also be fun. Awareness is fun. Living with chronic pain is not. So it's definitely needed and bettering our lives. And the more people that are willing to speak up and use their voice, use their story. I mean, Meredith, what a powerful story she just shared with all of us, and that's an amazing story of how these CDC guidelines are affecting us firsthand.
Yeah.
So I know she says she's not brave, but I think that just sharing her story is the brave part. It's incredible. So I appreciate everybody who shared tonight, but her story really touched me a lot.
Yeah. Hey, we have another question from YouTube Live. Careless Taurus asks, was there any place of information or any piece of information that was presented to Congress that Congress truly were not aware of?
Well, I think that, I don't know, was that to you or to me?
Well, I'm going to ask both of you guys.
Okay, I would say that the National Pain Strategy, came out about a week, within a week of the CDC guidelines. And the National Pain Strategy is actually pretty well done and had people in the chronic pain world, providers and patients and people in legislation work on this National Pain Strategy, and it really didn't get a lot of acknowledgement or attention. It has not gotten funding, and so that's one of the big things the last 2 years when I've gone to Congress. On one of the visits each year, I talked about the National Pain Strategy, and most of the people that I talked to, the legislators I talked to, hadn't heard of the National Pain Strategy, didn't know that it existed and how great it was, and that it's a good thing for the chronic pain community. They do know about the CDC guidelines, but they don't know the true facts behind opioid addiction and the opioid epidemic versus the chronic pain epidemic. And so for them to hear about the chronic pain epidemic that we were in there sharing really opened up their eyes.
Yeah, I agree. Lauren, do you remember anything specific that jumped out at you?
What jumped out at me was in the meeting with Congressman McGovern is he has heard a lot of stories in the district, but it's been all on the addiction side. So I think that was a really eye-opening meeting and showing how badly this is really impacting on the streets. Because in Massachusetts in particular, and this is something that, although it's a state law, it's very concerning on a federal level because our governor has written an opioid law where it will further define how the opioid epidemic is going to be combated. And in that process, with the CDC oversight and the fear of the DEA coming in and benchmarking you against other physicians in the area, that he really was not aware of how badly that the hospitals themselves are implementing cancer patients only. The pain clinics in the state are closing their doors to anybody who needs any sort of opioid therapy. They're offering shots and things of that nature, but anybody with shots will work for certain illnesses or some minor muscle injuries. But when we're crossing the threshold over into disease and things like that, opioid is a piece of a very larger puzzle. So I think he got some really good information and actually is going to be taking some steps to look into what is going on in our state and to why the hospitals seem to have this strategy of we're just not going to prescribe unless you have cancer, because that's not what the state law says. So that was a good information that we got to really show him how bad it's happening on our side.
Barbie, did you have any more another comment before?
Well, I saw somebody was asking, they said they never heard of the National Pain Strategy. If you go to the internationalpain.org and then go under the patient awareness tab, there's a whole tab about the National Pain Strategy, as well as a link to what the strategy actually is. It's a 90-something page document that goes through 6 different sections of what the National Pain Strategy is. And you can learn some quick facts on our website as well as see the actual report. And then also cpatf.org, an organization that we helped found. It's a coalition task force type of organization, and we're one of the founding members of that task force. And our sole reason for forming was to help craft the National Pain Strategy. Now that it's developed, is to get it implemented. So that's what we've been working on the legislative side for a couple of years now.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I hope we can help each other out in the future on that, because you've been very successful and you have a lot of experience in this. So thank you, Barbie, so much for doing this.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for having me on tonight. I wish I could have come on sooner. I did hear I was listening on the car on the way home from my infusion treatment. So I really appreciate everybody and what you guys did today once again. And thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thank you, and have a great night.
You too.
We have more callers. I just wanted to say something before I bring somebody else in. So something that, and Barbie mentioned it, a few days, like 2 days before we actually came to D.C., I didn't realize, how much information this was going to be put all together. We used 2 binders, 3-inch binders, and I still got tons of information after that. Something that I thought of is to put everything on a thumb drive and pass them out during, while we're walking the halls, or give it to the congressmen and senators, because it's just all in there, and then it can be added and taken out. And something that I'm going to make public is the same information. So I just need a little bit of time when I get back to North Carolina, but I will be putting that in a place. So if anybody wants to know, what information this is, it's articles and documents and just different laws and suggestions, all of that. I will be putting a place that anybody can find it out and learn about it and use it if you'd like. We're going to take another call. Caller from area code 205.
$1.91. Is that right? Press 1 for yes.
Hello? Caller from area code 205.
Hey, Jonelle? Hey,
Yes.
Sorry. This is Ann calling, and I was just calling to thank you guys for all your hard work today. It was great hearing about what y'all were able to do, speaking to the lawmakers and the fact that they don't know about the national pain strategy. But they didn't. Yeah, they knew all about the CDC, but not about that. That's telling. But that's telling. That's what they see this as is a law, legal crackdown, issue, not as a healthcare issue. They've got to see this they need to see this as a as a healthcare problem, not a, it's not something that the police, the DEA needs to be in charge of, and it's as if they, co-opted the CDC, which should be looking out for Americans' welfare, not prohibiting, but not in a, I guess. Not trying to prohibit. I guess that they feel they are looking out for our welfare, preventing overdoses, but they're not seeing the big picture of what they're doing to the while they don't prevent overdoses, because they're failing miserably at it. But anyway, that's it. And thank you so much for all you're doing. You are really glad that you decided to come forward and share your story. And it's not an easy thing to do, but I know everybody's really glad that you did, and that you were you've got this this radio show that's this kind of a platform to get people's attention, and that's I think that's going to be a really helpful thing for all of us. So thank you so much, and you have a wonderful evening.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you calling, and I hope you have a great night. We're going to take one more call. Caller from area code 713. What's your name and where are you from? Hello, caller from area code 713. What's your name and where are you from?
Hi, this is Andrea from Texas. How are you guys?
Hi, Andrea. Good. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderfully, and I just wanted to, first of all, thank everyone involved that went to the Senate and the Hill today and did all that work in preparation on the behalf of the 25 million people who are suffering and need that work. So, first of all, just thank you. Sincerely and deeply. We're very, very grateful.
Thank you.
No problem.
Because you helped so much, prepare all the people that would be speaking, and also, put all this information together. I could have done it without you, and you were one of the people that when I was talking about, everybody that was helped out, you were definitely a big part of this, so I really appreciate it.
Well, you're too kind. Honestly, it was an honor for all of us. But I did want to ask 2 questions, if I may, not only for my own interest in information, but also for everyone who might be getting ready to do the same thing that you did today. And the first question is, are there barriers that we need to know about in terms of getting into a representative or a senator's office? Like, for example, I'm picturing like walking up the steps. Are there metal detectors? Do you have to have an appointment? Can anybody just go and stop by offices? Like, how does it work specifically to get into, say, Capitol Hill or your state's congressional offices?
There are metal detectors when you get into the building, so I would say if you have an appointment, the Capitol can be a little bit confusing, so you should give yourself a little bit of buffer time to make sure you can get into the building. Give a good 10 minutes for the metal detector. It's a lot like just going through the airport where you put everything, your bags, things like that, through a conveyor belt. And as far as the meetings, I'm not 100% sure if you need to have appointments or if you can show up. That would be something I'd have to look into. We did go in with appointments. I would imagine, and I'm just kind of talking off my own top of my head, is that generally if you're not going to have an appointment, the likelihood of getting seen is probably going to be pretty low. But even as I was leaving the building, I had seen a few congressmen that I really wanted to try to just reach out to. So I just kind of popped into their office and spoke with the woman in the front and gave her some information, gave her the business cards and a little bit of extra pamphlets. Even though I didn't have a meeting, it was just kind of a pop-in and gave them the info so that they had it.
Okay. Well, that is really helpful to know because it's a little intimidating, I'm sure, to think about doing something, that big. My other question was, were you able to find out either from our congressmen or from our senators if there's any bills that are sponsored or written in the House or the Senate in committee or on the floor that we as a group need to be aware of? Is there any pending legislation that was referenced that, because, you can look on Bill Tracker and see, 100 opioid-related bills, but, most of them don't have any chance of making it. So is there anything specific that we need to know about that you may have learned today?
Well, there isn't anything specific that they went into legislatively that they're doing currently to protect us, but we did give ideas and our thoughts on that, and Jonelle touched on that earlier with Dr. Klein's palliative care certificate, and another suggestion that we gave them, and it seems to be pretty well received, is it's very much like to issue intractable pain patients cards, just like the medical marijuana industry does, and that you would be identified as an intractable pain patient and with your specific illness on it. And that would be a way that if we got something like that implemented, that we could be exempt from the CDC oversight, because we were really not meant to be, those guidelines were not written for people like us. They were written for primary care and not into the advanced chronic pain and disease community. And that seemed to be a really well-received suggestion. And another thing that I think we really just need to push is that we need to have some physicians and some real chronic pain patients involved in the discussions with the legislation, because there are so many aspects to this. There isn't a one-shoe-fits-all. So we need to have a team of medical experts, as well as some addiction treatment counselors and pain patients themselves, because we as pain patients can offer one thing that the doctors never can, despite the amount of training that they have, is the true experience in living in intractable pain, a 24/7 a day. And unfortunately, the only way to know that is to live it. So that is a suggestion that we would like to continue to pursue, is to try to get the appropriate minds in the discussion.
Well, that's good to know. So there isn't anything pending right now that we need to be like, but it's great to keep talking with everyone to make sure that we get our ideas in front of them so they have alternatives. Is that essentially, am I restating that properly?
They're having a lot of the legislation that's being talked about right now, unfortunately, for us, is all driven towards combating the crisis. So that's why it's so important for us to get out there and start really getting in front of and making these calls to make sure that these opioid guidelines do not continue to get more and more stringent to the point where we're basically effectively making them illegal.
Okay. Well, thank you. That is really good to know. I was really glad to know there isn't anything that we've been overlooking. And those are wonderful and great ideas that I think the whole community could get behind. So thank you, guys, for your hard work and everything you've done.
Andrea, another thing I know that's occurring is there is a group they're forming together to relook at the laws. And just like in the CDC guidelines that were created in 2016, they didn't have any doctors that were experienced or directly work with, chronic pain patients or intractable pain patients. I think the closest thing they had was a ER doctor, and the rest were like, rehab, addiction specialists and stuff like that. So something that I would like to see is that they will put people on this board to cover everybody, to have everyone covered on this, to be fair and balanced. Have you heard of that at all?
No, I haven't. I'm aware of the Health and Human Services opioid committee that I think we have some pending nominations for, but nobody has been able to really find out what the status is of that. But I haven't heard of this effort that you just discussed.
Mm.
But I'm glad to know, and I would love to know more. So, any further education you can give, I'm sure we all want to know as many different ways that we can be effective.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
So thanks, guys.
Yeah. Have a great night.
Okay, take care. Thank you all.
So, Lauren, did you want to discuss anything else before we close for the night? Because,
I did want to, excuse me. In regards, I just wanted to talk a little bit about chronic illness advocacy and awareness and kind of where we plan to go from here after these meetings, because, like you said, this is just the beginning. This was the beginning of many more meetings and a lot more work that we need to do. And we have we can be found on Facebook under Chronic Illness Advocacy and Awareness Group. And within there, we're going to be actively recruiting and looking for additional leaders to basically saturate the entire nation and start building and training advocates so that they can do the appropriate things to really start increasing our voices and start coming together even more so, kind of brainstorm ideas, and also work with you in building the rally so that we can make this rally really, really impactful. And we are going to continue to reach out to the media. So if anybody is really looking for a place to advocate and get involved in, we accommodate our advocacy to illnesses. We understand that people have the limitations and they get sick, so we can have a small job as to just call your representative, and we're going to help with writing some scripts if anybody needs some assistance into what to say. And there's much more heavy lifting work if people want to get into research, get into going to meetings. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm really excited to start reaching out and getting involved with more people that want to just get out there and start getting our voices heard. And I think a big thing that I found in the short period of time that I ran, since I've opened this group, is that I found a lot of patients are so scared to speak up. And the message that I want to give to everybody is that a lot of us, I think, are scared because we've been shamed by the medical community because of what they're getting told from the top level. So I want to just everybody, as a final message, just to really just embrace your illness, as goofy as that sounds, is just own it and own it with pride and get your voice back, because I feel like a lot of people have lost their voice and felt defeated because when you try and you try and you try again and you keep hitting those obstacles, it can be very defeating. And honestly, the group and the advocacy work and the nonprofit is the one thing that keeps me going and it keeps me pushing forward, is seeing all of you and your strength coming together. So I just really want to encourage people to just be brave. You have nothing to be afraid of, and you should not be ashamed of your illness.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lauren, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on tonight and coming here to DC with me, and I hope we can do this many, many more times. And I also just want to thank everybody out there that tuned in tonight that has been helping out, that's continuing to help out. We need to continue to do this over and over again until something happens. I'm just so blessed and honored to work with all of you, and I just really appreciate it. So, Lauren, again, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm. All right, Con Nation, we're going to get going here. Tomorrow night, I will be having on Andrea Anderson. I want to go further and in more detail of what is going on, the laws, what has to happen, what needs to change, who's involved, and what we can do on a individual level, or if we want to work with others. Again, this is all about putting out information, education, and supporting one another, and coming together on, even if it's just this one thing. I hope everybody has a great night, and we will see you tomorrow at 8/7 Central. Thank you.
Listening to Conspiracies Against Wellness with Jonelle Elgaway. Join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern to get in on the conversation. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and callers, and not necessarily those of EXG LLC, its employees, or sponsors. I'm David Shifter.
Copyright 2017 by EXG LLC. All rights reserved.